Hello, everyone. Good evening, dear authors and invited guests. Welcome to the Technical Session 2A. Myself, Ishita Sorhan, and this session will be moderated by me. On behalf of Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 7th World Conference on Smart Transit Systems, Security and Sustainability, WS4 2023, London, UK. The 7th edition of the conference is being organized in a hybrid mode. The physical event was held in London, UK on 21st August 2023, and the virtual event is being held through Zoom today and tomorrow, that is 23rd and 24th August 2023. I hope you will enjoy the knowledgeable and interactive sessions through the day. In this session, we have 6 presentations. Each presenter will be given 12 minutes for presentation and 3 minutes for question and answers. On 10 minutes, I will raise a gentle reminder. There is another request to all the participants that you all stay connected with us till the closing remarks. If you have any query or update, then you can write it to me in the chat box. Just before we start the session, I would like to introduce you all to the chair of this session, Professor Meenakshi Sumit Arya. Just a second. Professor Meenakshi Sumit Arya, Research Scientist, Iowa State University, Ames, Iowa. Currently, she is a Research Scientist, Iowa State University, Ames, an experienced academician with a demonstrated history of researching in the field of artificial intelligence and deep learning, skilled in machine learning, big data analytics, algorithms, data structures, and C++ programming languages. She's a strong educational professor with a PhD focused in computer science and engineering. Please, ma'am, do we have you here?
Ishita, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, yes.
I think she's meant for the session at 1:15 p.m. according to the agenda.
Sorry, could you repeat, please?
Yes, I think Mrs. Meenakshi Sumit Arya is due for 1:15 p.m. today.
Oh, we'll wait for her. Till then, I can just introduce our next session chair. We have our session chair, Professor Ruchi Doshi, Associate Professor, Universidad Azteca, Mexico. Dr. Ruchi Doshi is having more than 16 years of academic research and software development experience. She also worked with Blue Crest University College, Ghana, Amity University, India. She is interested in the field of computer vision, cloud edge computing, and machine learning in higher education. She has published research papers in peer-reviewed international journals and conferences. She's an active member in organizing many international seminars, workshops, and conferences in India, Ghana, Liberia, Denmark, and Ethiopia. Please extend your welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Ishita.
I would like to start with the papers now. I'd like to invite our first presenter, Josephine Okocha, with the paper titled A Comparison of E-Government Services in Education Between Developed and Emerging Economies, a Study of Nigeria and USA. Please go ahead, presenter.
Good morning, everyone. Please, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Okocha Josephine from ASTO, African Center of Excellence for Technology Enhanced Learning of National Open University. So I'm presenting the paper titled A Comparison of E-Government Services in Education Between Developed and Emerging Economy, a study of Nigeria and the United States. So we're going through these following outlines: the introduction, the statements of the problem, the aim, the limitation of the study, the justification, review of related literature, the research methodology, the research questions, the findings, the conclusions, and the references. It's been observed that the standard of education has dropped drastically in developing nations, which has resulted to the mass exodus of students leaving developing countries for developed countries for better and quality education. And this has also been captured in the latest United Nations survey of 2022, where the E-Government Development Index for Emerging Economy was seen as low, while that for advanced economy was seen as high. So this research primarily will provide a summary of the literature using key factors to compare e-government services in education for developed economy, comparing it with that of the emerging economy. The statement of the problem. The educational sector in emerging economy is faced with a decline in the quality of graduates that has been produced in recent times. And this has been as a result of the poor execution and implementation of e-government services in the educational sector, which has led to mass exodus of students moving from the developing nations to the advanced nations for quality education. The aim of this research is to compare the e-government services in education between Nigeria and the United States of America in a bid to formulate strategies to help in the execution and implementation of e-government services in developing economy. One of the objectives of this study is to know the difference in e-government services provided for in education between developed and emerging economy, and also to know how the emerging economies like Nigeria could benefit from e-government services that is offered by developed economies like the United States of America in the area of education. The limitation of this study is that the study focused more on quantitative study rather than qualitative or mixed. And this affected the findings of the study because other studies outside these methodological descriptions were excluded from the analysis. Also, the study was retrieved from the database using certain search terms. The justification of this study is that this study provides an insight into providing a better understanding of how e-government services in education are developed and executed in order to provide high-quality education witnessed in developed economy, and also specify the components that could help emerging economies benefit from e-government services from developed economies. From the literature review or from the related literature work that has already been done in the past, it was observed that inadequate training of public staffs in the educational sector, as well as the attitude of management, the management of these educational institutions, as well as inadequate government support are some of the challenges facing the adoption of e-government services in the educational sector in Nigeria. Also, the e-government development index, as well as the online service index for emerging economy for 2022 was rated at 0.4562, while that of the high economy and advanced economy, like that of the US, the UK, the Australia, Netherlands, and the Sweden, were rated as high as 0.752. So in all, the EGDI for developed economy was ranked high, while that of the developing of the emerging economies like Chad, Somalia, Niger, Chad, and other African countries were ranked low. It was also observed that developed economies like the US provide adequate infrastructure for e-government services in education. For example, the amount of electricity generated in the United States of America is about 1.2 megawatts electricity, while that, when compared to that of Nigeria, which is below 4,000 megawatts of electricity. So also, Wi-Fi and internet connections for education in the United States is about 98% of the college graduates have access to internet, while over 86% of high school students have access to the internet and the Wi-Fi. So when compared to that of Nigeria, which is quite very low. So the research question. Research question: what are the differences in e-government services provided for in education between a developed and an emerging economy? And another research question was, how can emerging economies in Nigeria benefit from e-government services offered by developed economies like the United States in the field of education? The research methodology adopted for this research was the literature review method. A total of 76 papers were retrieved from the database, and these papers were papers published between 2018 and 2023. Then out of the 76 papers, just 12 papers were selected, which were included in the analysis. They were the ones that were included in the analysis. Some other data were gotten from academic journals, government reports, and non-governmental reports. The findings. From the findings, we looked at e-government services that are provided. We looked at the e-procurement platform, digital invoicing, online transactional service, and internet availability. So for emerging economies, only 19 countries out of 54 African countries make use of e-procurement platform. But in the developed economy, we have over 39 countries that make use of e-procurement platform. For digital invoicing, only 10 countries out of 54 countries in the emerging economy have digital invoicing. While when you compare that of the developed economy, 35 out of 47 makes use of digital invoicing. Then online transactional services, we have 36 out of 54 countries in the emerging economy that carries out online transactional activities, while 41 out of 43 countries from the developed economy make use of online transactional activities. Then internet availability. 33% of the populace of emerging economy have access to the internet. And when you compare it to that of the developing economy, they have over 85.2% of the populace with internet availability. So there were key factors that were used in the comparison when we're comparing the e-government services provided for in education in Nigeria and that provided for in the United States. For the IT infrastructure, where you have wireless CAN, e-learning, and distance education, it was observed that in Nigeria, just a few institutions have access to wireless internet service, and even the ratio for laptop to internet access for higher learning in Nigeria is quite low. So when compared to that of the United States, we have almost all the institutions that are equipped and fully have internet access. Then we also looked at another key factor, policies and law. In Nigeria, we have just NITDA that provides guidelines on e-government services and IT usage. While in the United States of America, we have the E-Government Act of 2002 that provides a holistic and comprehensive guide on e-governance and also provides e-government funds and the likes. In the area of funding as well, there is no funding designated for e-government services in the educational sector in Nigeria. But in the United States, the E-Government Act established the E-Government Fund, which provides funds for innovative use of technology. In the area of accessibility and transparency, most e-government services are not accessible to the populace. But when you compare to that of America, they provide a large database of e-government services. For example, www.data.gov provides a large amount of data sets for research. Then in the area of research as well, there are no adequate research grants for funds to fund research in e-government services in education in Nigeria. But in the United States of America, they provide grants and loans to students with their educational pursuits. So they provide grants for researchers to carry out research on e-government services. In the area of trust and confidence, Nigeria is rated 150 to 150 out of 180 countries by Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, while America is rated 24 over 180. So the trust and confidence level that the people have in Nigeria for their government to provide e-government service for education is quite low, while that of America, it's high.
Sorry to disturb, dear presenter, but you're nearing your time limit.
Sorry?
You're nearing your time limit. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I just wanted to remind you that.
My name and what?
It's all right. Continue, please.
Okay. Okay. So the findings shows that the following factors inhibit e-government services in the educational sector for emerging economies. And these are the key factors. Inadequate IT infrastructure. In Nigeria, the IT infrastructure is still at a very low level, where we still have most higher institutions of learning without appropriate internet access, low power supply, lack of personal systems for research, and the likes. And also, there's a lack of appropriate policies and laws to effectively effect e-government services in education. Also, the issue of poor funding. The funding for education from the emerging economies or developing nations from their budget allocation on a yearly basis is still very low. So poor funding is also another factor affecting the implementation of e-government services in education. Then there is this lack of transparency from the government agencies that provide some of these e-government services, as well as lack of trust and accountability. The people lack trust in their government to provide e-government services for education. Conclusion: governments of emerging economies should see education as a necessary and important tool to drive development, taking into cognizance the enormous benefits of ICT in the educational sector by providing adequate infrastructures, adequate laws and policies, funding, proper research with trust and confidence, as well as accessibility and transparency. These are some of the references for the research. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Presentees, would anyone like to ask any question?
Yes, Josephine, this is Laurent. I have a question for you. I happen to work in Nigeria from 2011 to 2015, and I noticed that there are still in the middle class or high class people with private access to internet. Is there any chance to use private online trainings such for open source softwares?
Sorry, can you come over again with your question?
No worries. There is a new trend for access to free online softwares by universities from overseas in order to create communities of users. It is a way for Nigerian citizens to bypass the lack of support from e-government services without paying for it.
Yes. There are available softwares, open source, for Nigerian students to get access to those softwares. There are available softwares whereby you can have access to whatever you want as a student.
So it's quite good because rather than having to pay, it provides an opportunity to access these softwares, while in return, it helps developing a community of users from the universities which propose those softwares.
Yes, for instance, the National Open University of Nigeria, they grant them, they give access to their students to access those softwares. They get the access from the software providers. They provide the access to the students whereby they can as well get those softwares online.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any more questions, anyone?
Thank you, Geoffrey. I just want to know about your data collection. Is your primary or secondary collection?
Yes, the secondary data collection.
So can I know how you collected your data?
Can you do what?
How you collected your data, how you gathered the data?
Okay, I said I got most of the journals from the Scopus database. Then I used the search term in selecting those papers. As I said from my methodology, about 76 papers were retrieved, only 12 papers fit the criteria for inclusion. Then while other data that were used non-governmental data, like the United Nations Survey Report is available online. So those are some data that were also gotten. Hello?
Thank you, presenter. It seems we don't have any more questions, so we'll move on to the next presenter. I would like to invite Harushi C. Sonadhara to present her paper titled A Natural Language Understanding Sequential Model for Generating Queries with Multiple SQL Demands. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So good day, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for this incredible opportunity to having the chance to present my work at the WS4 conference. So today I will be presenting the research that I have conducted on implementing a natural language understanding system for generating queries with multiple SQL commands. So moving on, turning our attention to the agenda, here's what we will be covering in this presentation. So to start with, let me give you an introduction to this research. So as we all know, in today's world, there's a huge increase in data and information that are being used all over the world for many different purposes. Storing data is vital for decision making and how organizations are structured, which is why databases are widely employed in nearly every situation. So when it comes to natural language in the form of spoken and written communication, it is what serves as a primary medium of conveying ideas and thoughts. So to bridge this gap between human language and world of machines, natural language processing techniques come into the picture. So just as how I mentioned earlier, since databases are widely used nowadays, this demand for knowledge of database languages such as SQL, NoSQL, PLSQL likewise is quite significant. So however, many non-technical users lack expertise in any database language and they find it very challenging or very difficult when they come to work with databases. So this main goal of this project, GenSQL, is to solve this problem by providing an effective solution that uses natural language processing techniques to produce SQL queries for these users. So let's go ahead and see some of the conducted research related to generating SQL queries from natural language text. So this related work can be categorized under three sections. So the first one will be a rule-based approach. The second one is machine learning, and the third one is the hybrid approach. So in text SQL generation, a rule-based technique depends on specified linguistic and semantic rules to convert natural language inquiries into SQL queries, and it generates a structured and an interpretable output. So if I name some of the greatest work that has been conducted, CoSQL by Tao Yu in 2019 presents a system for building cross-domain database querying dialogue systems. So another one would be Uma M along with his fellow researchers published their work in 2019, and they have successfully followed a rule-based paradigm. So likewise in machine learning approach, I'm sorry.
Please continue.
Yeah, okay, sure. So likewise in machine learning approach, we can say that it utilizes training data to teach algorithms and neural networks so that it can predict and convert a given natural language text to SQL query. So when talking about hybrid approaches, it uses both rule-based and machine learning approaches. So moreover, if I say it uses a set of predefined rules and training data to achieve accurate and flexible conversion of natural language into accurate SQL queries. So I'll be moving on to the problem background of this research. So I will be discussing about the importance of the databases and the challenges faced by the general public when using databases, and also importance of natural language text to SQL query generation systems. And at last, I'll be talking about the importance of natural language understanding in generating SQL queries with multiple SQL commands. So it's not wrong if I say databases are the lifeblood of our digital lives. So they serve as a foundation for organizing, storing and retrieving very big amounts of information, which are really critical to organizations from business to healthcare to education. So instead of managing all these manually with a stack of papers and files, storing them in databases saves a significant time, and it offers a remarkable convenience. So, however, there's a significant challenge in this. Accessing and utilizing databases often requires a level of technical expertise, particularly in database query languages like SQL. So this presents a roadblock for non-technical users. These individuals who may be experts in their respective fields often might struggle to use databases due to the complexity and the lack of knowledge in query languages. So I mean, therefore, these organizations often need a dedicated database team to overcome these kind of situations. So, which makes it an additional cost and very time consuming. So, this is where the importance of natural language text to SQL query generation systems becomes evident. Imagine a world where you can interact with databases using everyday language without the need for specialized skills. So these systems make accessing data easier and empower more people to use databases effectively and boost efficiency in data related tasks. So now, since the existing systems are only capable of generating one query at a time, users will have to input one at a time, one natural language text to the system. So by any chance, if the input text contains more than one SQL commands in the user input, then the existing systems might fail to output the expected user output. So therefore, this kind of systems are very much needed to handle these scenarios as well. So I'm taking you through the design of this project. So as you can see in the diagram here, it depicts a high-level architecture diagram of the design system. So if I simply explain this, first the natural language query, the user input is entered to the system, and then it's passed to the text breakdown process. This is where the text, the input text is being broken down into multiple sentences from identifying the coordinating conjunctions containing in the text. So we get a multiple of sentences here, and then each sentence is being passed to verb extraction process. That is where the type of the query, the type of the SQL query is being detected. So after that, then it is passing through the NLP techniques like tokenization, lemmatization, syntactic and semantic analysis, and then attribute and table identification. And finally, it forms the SQL query. So this generated SQL query will be passed through the front end, through the UI, so that the user can see the generated SQL query. Also, the user has the option to execute this generated SQL query to the connected database through this application, and then the executed results will be shown to the user through the user interface. So this is basically what happens in the application. So here I have attached some images so that it's very clear for you to understand. Here the text is can be inserted, and then the query is shown, and then the respective results are also shown through the application. So I'll take you through the methodology of what basically happens when a input text is given to the system. So for an example, let's say fetch the data from the table and add a new record, then update the existing record and remove the old one. I am taking this as an example. So the conjunctions are being identified, and then the sentences are separated. So here we get 4 sentences, and each sentence is detected as what type of a query it is. So here the first one is a data retrieval, which will form into a select query, and then likewise the second one to an insert query. Likewise, the queries are being categorized. So moving on to the testing and the evaluations. Both functional and non-functional requirements have been tested when it comes to this project GenSQL. A manually created database was used to perform a test and evaluate the accuracy of these generated SQL queries. So as you can see in this table, it shows a black box testing of the GenSQL application, and also the blue and the rock scores are mentioned in here. So if I explain those, the blue score measures how well our system uses words and phrases similar to the reference text, and while the rock score checks if the system's output has chunks of text that matches with the reference text. So going forward.
Sorry to disturb, presenter, but you're nearing your time limit.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for the reminder. So if I explain about the benchmarking, so comparing the performance of our system with other benchmark models in the context of text to SQL generation, you can see in the table here it's a comparison, and the image next to it will show the some information about taken from the sequence in SQL research, which was done by Ning Lee in 2020 research paper. So moving on to the future work and the conclusion. So as an advancement in this project JetSQL, we can improve this to data deletion and data modification as well. So currently it works for data retrieval and data insertion. Also, incorporating the group by and having clauses in query generation. So currently it works with where clauses join likewise. So these group by and having clauses can be added to the output, and also enhancing the performance across multiple languages, because currently the system supports only the English language. We can improve the system to support other languages as well. So in conclusion, our project has met its global this goal by creating a powerful system that converts a given natural language text to a SQL query, like even if the input has more than one SQL querying command. So it provides the executed results as well from the connected database, and yeah, it gives a solution to the people who struggles to work with databases not knowing any database language. So that comes to the end of the presentation. So thank you very much for listening.
We can proceed with the questions.
Yes, this is Laurent Tharoshi. Just a simple question. Do you have any experience of using SQL with Linux Ubuntu?
Not much experience, but I have learned it.
Okay. So because I have been used to, as a beginner, to use commands on Linux, but I do not see exactly how an SQL server can make easier the interface with the database, with the data center. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you anyway. That's just a query.
Right, okay. Thank you very much.
Ma'am Ruchi, would you like to ask
Yeah.
a question?
Like you told that you do not have much experience with the SQL, but you know how to insert your table in the SQL.
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
I want to know that how you will able to create or insert your table in a SQL.
To the application?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the system administrator has to do that when the data, this is the initial prototype. So the administrator connects the database through the backend process to the application, so that the users, so this is for organizations that they have this database connected to the application, so they can so once the application is connected to the database, then the users can literally say from their language and get the executed results from this database.
What do you understand by primary key? Is primary key is necessary in your table?
Yes, it is auto-generated at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tharushi. We'll proceed with the next presenter. I'd like to invite Lauren Bartholomew to present their paper titled Modeling the Water Runout Effect During Personal Transfer to Wind Turbine in Waves with Short Periods. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. It is said that I cannot. Okay, I suppose I can share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so so I am going to talk about transfer of crew from a ship, a boat, to a wind turbine, and more specifically a floating wind turbine, which is a new kind of technology we have, for instance, in Europe. One of the facts which prevent people from boarding from a boat to a wind turbine is what we call the water run-up effect, which is the wave splashing the deck of the boat, especially for short wave periods. So briefly, I am a teacher and a researcher for the French Merchant Navy School. Our benchmark is boarding a crew transfer vessel from a monopile, which is a cylinder fixed on the seabed. There are many monopiles installed in North Europe, actually, so we have plenty of records. So in this case, we have a wave coming from the left to the right. So we approximated the vessel with a mathematical equation, which is called Wigley hulls, which is a catamaran here, so 2 hulls. It is a 27-meter long boat, 8.2 meter wide, 1.5 meter draft. The monopile is 5 meter diameter, water depth is 30 meter. We use open source softwares for this calculation, so they are available for everyone. The efforts shown on the structures are the incident waves, which is the wave coming from the left to the right of the screen. The boats, if you see on the top, being larger than the monopile, there is no masking of the waves by the monopile. And then you have another phenomenon which is called diffraction. So diffraction is when a wave impacts on the structure tends to vibrate and generate other waves. Now, this is a floating wind turbine. So this one is a vertical cylinder. And you see the same boat on the right. On the top view, you see this time that the boat is not as large as the floater. So the wave still comes from the same direction. So this time, the wave is reflected by the wall of the floater. So from the surface to the keel, the wave will not go further than the floater. They will be reflected then back to the left. While a wave being a phenomenon involving movement of particles from the surface to the seabed, there is still a remaining column of wave going from the left below the keel. And we are even able to calculate the motion of the particles and by how much they go up and down. This cylinder is 13 meter diameter, 14 meter draft, 2,000 ton displacement. The water depth is 70 meter because it corresponds to actual sites where we are going to test new floating wind turbines in France. So this time, since the incident wave has a portion going from the left to the right, it is not totally reflected. We call it a clipped incident wave. So there is a clipped incident wave vertical force. Basically, since the remaining particle below go up and down, there is still action on the boat. The boat is moving to the wave passage. While the horizontal force is masked by the floater. So you can see from the top, the vessel cannot see the wave horizontal action. And then you still have the diffraction. So then I will go quickly on this one. This is the same kind of phenomenon. The only thing is that the geometry of the floater is different. It is no longer a vertical cylinder, but a square hollow floater. So dimension 36 meter side, 7 meter draft, 6,000 ton displacement, 23 meter water depth, and same efforts. This year, the results we worked on was to estimate the run-up effect, so the splashing of the boat's deck by the wave. So we started the simple analysis, which is to assume the wave to be a sinusoidal wave. If we want to calculate the splashing, we need to look on one hand at the ship heave, which is the vertical motion of the ship itself, and on the other hand, at the wave elevation. Obviously, if the vessel goes below the wave, the vessel is flooded. as simple as that. So first data, so ship heave, Z upper square A minus is the main deck elevation when the boat is not moving. Z lowercase a minus is then a sum of that value plus some cosinus on the sinus function. As regards the wave elevation, so it's a bit more tricky because you have two cases. If you have a monopile, which was the first slide, then the wave elevation will be the sum of the diffracted wave, so the action of diffraction, and the incident wave. But it will not be flipped. So A will be the full wave height. While downstream of floater this time, you will have the same formula, but as you may see, A will be replaced with AC. So it will be the clipped wave height that will be experienced by the boat. And then you just have to work out the difference between these two above values. And we make a formula out of it, which is easier to analyze. If we do a change of variable, you change the time by a letter tau, which is this expression, and then you get a function of two polynomials, so a ratio of two polynomials plus a constant. Based on this, it is easy to calculate the minimum of that value, and to make sure that this minimum does not get below 0. In such case, you will splash your deck. Let's get to the result now. So on the you come back to a benchmark because we worked out that other references similar calculations. So what we did was to present the results with on the x-axis the wavelength, which is the length between two up of waves, two crests of waves, divided by b, which is the boat length. So that is on the x-axis, lambda over b. On the y-axis, this is this formula that we just worked out in the last slide. And we look at the evolution of this range over lambda over b. At 50 meter water depth and 2 meter significant wave height. And we work out that the run-up may happen if we are below 1.1. If on over b, it's below 1.1. While a benchmark shows that they calculated it to be for 1. So we have 10% accuracy. 1.1 minus 1 divided by 1 is 10%, which is not too bad considering that we don't know the shape of the boat. We just assume the shape by the mathematical equation. Last year, in another conference, which is the same group as WS4, which was ICICT London, we did the same calculation, but based on friction. So I'm not going to recall what we did with ICICT. This time, this is the other criterion to allow boarding. You still have the ratio of the wavelength by the boat length on the x-axis, while on the y-axis, you have the friction coefficient. So it is simple. If you want the boat to be able to transfer the personnel, the boat must not move when it is clinging against the monopile. Therefore, it means that the friction coefficients must be lower than the grip coefficient. In blue, you have the friction coefficient. In green, in a red, you have the grip coefficient. So if you are below, you can board. So here you can board with 2 meter HS, provided that lambda over b is below 1.76. Then, if you compare to another reference, they work out 1.85. The reference is shown at the footnote. So this time we have 5% accuracy, which is quite good actually. Just to work out, it is important to consider the wavelength because the boat does not react in the same manner depending on the wavelength. You have two cases mainly. If we consider Mediterranean data, you could board with lambda over b greater than 2, but only 1.5 meter wave height for 11% of the cases, while you could still board with lambda over b below 2, but higher wave height at 35% of the cases, which is not at all negligible. So this is based on statistic over 30 years of experience in the Mediterranean Sea. As far as the results are concerned, so we worked out both criteria for being able to board, which is friction and no water runoff. Here they are. So you have the same data we showed before. So we saw before, so the monopile, the floater, 40 meter. Then we worked out also a larger floater, 41 meter, a parallelepipedal floater, not hollow, 46 meter side, and eventually what I call the floor-gen floater, which is a same side but hollow. And then we worked out the limit, whatever the wavelength this time. So for monopile, you could not board at 30 meter depth with more than 1.5 meter significant wave height. For cylindrical floater, 2.1 meter with 70 meter water depth. For a larger cylindrical floater, 2.5 with 23 meter. For a parallelepipedal floater, 2.6 meters, so a little bit higher, with same depth. They have been chosen because they have the same draft of displacement, so it helps to show the influence of the geometry of the floater on the boarding conditions. And eventually, for float-gen, it is a smaller height in order to be able to board. And the good news is that this is a prototype currently tested offshore France, and the record from 2019 showed 2.3 meters in wave height. So it works perfectly well in accordance with the results of the calculation. So
Excuse me, presenter. Sorry to disturb, but I just checked to remind you of the time limit.
Okay, I have just one more slide. Thank you.
Okay.
The observation is that the friction limit always overruled water runoff. So the main concern will be to have enough grip in order to board. The warning is that this simple calculation only relies on kinetic friction, which is that we do not consider that the boat from time to time is stuck against the monopile and sometimes just moving when there is a bigger wave coming. That's it for me. So I am open to any questions. Thank you for listening.
We'll go ahead with the questions. Any questions, anyone? Ma'am Ruchi?
You are cutting.
Ma'am Ruchi, would you like to ask a question?
No, I'm just saying thank you very much for your informative presentation.
We'll go ahead with the next presenter. I'd like to invite Ifsesam Akhter to present the paper titled Performance Analysis of Different Deep Learning Algorithms for Rice Leaf Disease Detection. Please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me a chance. Is it visible?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're well. Welcome to our presentation. This is Ifsesam Akhter speaking from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I am so happy to getting a floor here to say something. If there is any mistakes, please take it easy. Me and other co-authors are working for developing a system which is performance analysis of different deep learning algorithms for rice leaf disease detections. Here I go on. Here is the topic which I have included in that slide. There are abstract, introduction, problem statement, literature review, proposed system, methodology, resultant discussion, and last one is conclusion. Now the abstract. Actually, what is the objective for our research work? Here is rice is the main food in Bangladesh. Reduced rice output is caused by a number of illnesses. So it is important to detect the rice illness quickly. And here we are offering a novel approach for diagnosing rice illness based on deep convolutional neural networks. There's RCNNs such as ResNet-50, PGC-19, and Inception-V3. Automatic rice disease identification and diagnosis based on deep learning techniques can help us for raising the global food demands and increasing the rice production quality and reduces the financial losses for farmers. Here is the introduction part. Bangladesh is a developing country that is primarily dependent on agriculture and rice to feed its people and maintain its economy. So some viruses that affected rice presents threat to the world's food supply. So our main goal is to create a system based on BGG19 and Section B3, ResNet 50 and CNS models for recognizing and categorize the many kinds of rice-fed illness. At first, we are collecting a data set by taking picture from the experimental area for identifying bacterial leaf blight, brown spot, and leaf smut. Here are the data sets that are collected for and using to train and evaluate the BGG19 and Section V3, ResNet 50, and CNN models. Here's the problem statement for research work. Our main goal in this research is to identify the 3 primary diseases that are causes illness in rice leaf. Determine that which model between the BGG19 and Section V3, CNN, and ResNet 50 is more reliable for identifying these 3 types of we used to extract pictures and classify images, while the ResNet 50 is used to extract key features from the images. And we are using also BGG19 and exception V3, which helps us to achieve a greater accuracy. And we are trying to choose the best model for rice leaf identification and analyzing the multiple deep learning models. Here are the 3 rice disease images from where we can know that what is the symptoms of 3 rice diseases. The first one is bacterial leaf blight. Xanthomonas orzo PV is responsible for that bacterial leaf blight. And the first indication of common bacterial leaf blight are little water spots on the underside of leaves. The second one is the brown spot. See, mia beans is responsible for that brown spot. And the first symptoms of that brown spot is there is a ring-shaped pattern with brown color. And the last one is leaf smut. Xanthomonas orzo is responsible for this, and the whole greenish leaf is covered with a black small spot. And here is the literature review. In that, by reading this paper is related by rice leaf disease and other deep learning techniques. The first one is rice leaf disease detection using machine learning techniques. Their objective is work on bacterial leaf blight, brown spot, leaf smut by using machine learning techniques. And they are using KNN, J48, and naive and logistic regression model. And their future work is to plan to explore the effectiveness of ensemble learning methods on their dataset. The second one is detection of plant leaf diseases using CNN. They are trying to identify tomato, grape, and apple diseases, and also healthy leaves are detected by using CNN models. They are trying to optimizing the work to implement in artificial intelligence environment. The third one is identification and recognition of rice disease and pests using convolutional neural network. Their main objective is to identifying the 6 types of rice diseases, and they are using the method ensemble model, ResNet 121, SE ResNet 50, and ResNet 50. And their future work is to segmentation or objective detection based on algorithm can be implemented with a view to detecting and classifying rice disease and pests. The last one is automatic diagnosis of rice disease using deep learning. Their objective is to finding the bacterial leaf blight, brown spot hopper, false smut, stem borer, hispa, brown spot, shade blight, neck blast are detected. They are using the method BGG16, MobileNet, NASNet Mobile, and CQCNet. And their future work is to studies will be carried out on a network queuing to reduce the number of parameters. Here's the proposed system for our systems. The major goal of this research is to develop a deep learning model for rice leaf disease detection that can identify the common rice leaf disease. They are bacterial leaf blight, leaf smut, and brown spot. Here we are utilizing the CNN, BGG19, and exception V3 and ResNet 50 models in that system, and we'll choose the characteristic from the dataset before driving it on a training dataset and a testing dataset. And the classification method CNN, BGG19, and exception V3 will be used. And the deep learning models will be used here for determining the 3 rice leaf diseases. Here is the methodology, trying to collect image dataset. Then we are selections. Then our dataset will be testing on our training and testing dataset. Then this classification algorithm and model will help us for prediction of 3 diseases. They are bacterial leaf blight, brown spot, and leaf smut. So here's the working procedure of VGG19. VGG19 is a convolutional neural network, and we are using VGG19 in our model because it helps us to divide it 1000 types of objects, and it also classify our dataset into 1000 type of objects, and it also helps us for feature extraction. In VGG19, there are 16 convolutional layers, 3 fully connected layers, and 5 mixed layers, and 1 softmax layer. And another one is the Inception V3. We are using Inception V3 for getting the higher accuracy, and it also helps us to less computational cost. The Inception V3 is with 48 layers deep, and also it is a pre-trained model, and it can 2 parts for image identification, such as feature extraction to CNN, and image classification with softmax layer and fully connected layers. Here is the working procedure of CNN. In deep learning convolutional neural network, the CNN is a class of deep neural networks, which is mainly used in image analysis tasks like image recognition. It has convolutional layer, pooling layer, and a fully connected layer. It helps us to reduce the higher dimensionality and helps us for without losing information. Here is the working procedure of ResNet 50. This model can operate with 50 layers. The ResNet 50 is used for solving the diminishing gradient. And here, each convolutional block has 3 convolutional layers, and each identity block has also 3 convolutional layers. By using the deep learning models, ResNet 50 algorithms, we are getting accuracy 50 to 60%. And another one is we are using convolutional neural network, that is CNN. By using the CNN model, we can get the accuracy of 65 to 75%. The second highest accuracy is getting by the VGG19 algorithms, that is 70 to 80%. And the highest accuracy is getting by the Inception V3, that is 75 to 85%. Here is the output for our research work. At first, we are giving ImageNet dataset as an input. Then our model is executing that input by its feature and giving the output like that. Like class is bacterial leaf blight. Bacteria name is Bacterium Xanthomonas aurea. The second one is brown spot. The fungus name is Fungus Cohilobulus miapiens. And the last one is class is a leaf smut. Fungus name is Fungus Entailoma aurea. Here is the conclusion. Our research major objective was to create CNN like deep learning algorithms and 3 pre-trained CNN models that would help us to recognize the 3 different types of rice leaf diseases, including bacterial leaf blight, brown spot, and leaf smut. And our methodology will help the farmers to take action to identify the plant diseases and becoming seriously harmed by recognizing the 3 typical illness of rice leaves. And here, analysis and comparison of our study findings with those of CNN convolutional neural network, ResNet 50, Inception V3, and VGG19. Here is the reference part. In that part, we're including the author's name and the paper's name. By reading this paper, we can able to develop our systems. That system is useful for the farmers and other responsible persons for cultivating rice. And they can identify the rice leaf diseases and can take proper steps for better production of rice. And this system, these references paper is also related deep learning models, and we can able to know about deep learning models here. Anyway, I don't like to prolong my sessions. That's all for the moment. Do you have any questions? Please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, I am not at all in the same field of competence as you, so sorry, make it very simple. But what is the next step after your workout? I understand that you have identified one of the 4 machine learning softwares as being the most accurate. So what is the next step you are looking at?
Our next step is to using the ensemble models for that data set.
Can you come back?
Yes, our next step is to using the ensemble models on our data set.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Hi. Can I know why you choose CNN? Why you not choose ANN?
Actually, I know CNN used to CNN helps us to finding better accuracy, and it is also useful for ImageNet dataset. And by using CNN on ImageNet dataset, we can get in the better accuracy. That's why I am choosing the CNN models.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, presenter. We'd like to move with the next presentation. I'd like to invite our next presenter, Silam Barasan, to present the paper titled Robust Ownership Management for Secure Deduplication in Cloud. Sir, if you're here, please proceed.
I hope my screen is visible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Very good afternoon to one and all. See, I am Dr. Silambarasan from IIIT Kottayam. Today I'm going to give my paper presentation on robust ownership management for secure deduplication in cloud. So today my agenda is this one. So without some further delay, we get into the topic. So first we see about the introduction, like cloud computing. We all are aware of that. And nowadays everyone have using the cloud for storing the data, for getting the service in terms of infrastructure, so software level, platform level. So in my research work is focusing on infrastructure. When we are talking about the infrastructure, then storage, network, computation. In that, I'm focusing on storage. So when you talk about the cloud storage system, so nowadays the people are storing a day-to-day life activity, whatever events have happened, taking the snap and upload the data in the cloud, right? So the huge amount of data have come to a cloud. So the cloud server have to manage the cloud, manage the data in a proper way. Either it may be in the structured form or in the unstructured form. So when we are talking about the cloud storage system, then n number of users have uploaded the data. When you coming to the data side, so what is happening? For example, in my organization, I have 10 employees. We all are sharing one document, but we want to store the updated document in the cloud. Okay. Then if you are storing the data in the cloud, what will be the happening? The data is same, but when it comes to the cloud, it will be the multiple copy. So we call the name it as the duplicate data. Okay. So how to resolve the duplicate issues in cloud storage? We go for duplication technique. It's one of the compression technique for storing the unique data in cloud. Okay, so that we go for a deduplication technique. The cloud server have to, storage server have to incorporate the deduplication technique to avoid the duplicate data in the storage. Okay, in that, what's the problem in that? Yeah, here we have some issues like privacy issue. So when the data owner in the sense who is uploading the data. Okay, so the data owner have uploading the data to the cloud storage server. When it comes to the cloud storage server, they have to check whether the duplicates exist or not. How they will do that? Through the one-way hash function. What I mean by one-way hash function? Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So one-way function. So one-way function, we can call it as a hash function also. So in the hash function, we can give our data to the hash function. It will generate the code. So that hash code will be used as the digest or the fingerprint for uniquely identify the particular file, right? Okay. So through that, we can contact the cloud storage server, whether the data is exist or not. So in meantime, before we get into that, we should know about the classification of the deduplication. So the classification is based on the three factors. One is location based, size based, data granularity based. When it comes to the location based, here we have the two types. One is client side and then server side. What about the client side? What about the server side? We talk about the client side. I'm going to talk about more on the client side. Why? Because I'm going to concentrate on the client side deduplication. So the client have to generate the hash code, have to send to the cloud storage server. The cloud storage server have to check the duplicate. If a duplicate is there, then no need to upload the data. The cloud storage server will assign the reference pointer to the uploader. He can refer the particular file through that reference pointer. This is what the client side deduplication. When it comes to server side, the client have to upload the whole data to the server for checking the duplicate. Here the bandwidth utilization is more. Okay, so we go for the client side deduplication. Coming to the size-based deduplication, before I get into that, we should get into the data granularity based deduplication. In that we have file level and then block level. What about the file level and then block level? The file level about that uploading the whole file as a data. When it comes to the block level, the file is divided into the set of chunks, equal size or variable size. That will come under the size-based deduplication. Okay, so that's all about the deduplication. So here we are facing like privacy issue. How can we resolve that? By using the security. So how can we give the security? By going for some encryption technique. Yes. So secure deduplication come in the picture, right? So in the secure deduplication, we go for the traditional encryption techniques. What are the issues will come? So the same file have uploaded by the end user. If for example, I am uploading some data. So the same data is uploaded by my friend also. The problem is while I'm encrypting, I use my master key. He used his master key. So when it comes to the ciphertext form, I'm getting the CT1, he will get the CT2. When the CT2 comes to the cloud storage server, there the cloud server will detect like it's not the duplicate, but the plain text is same. So that's the issue with the traditional encryption technique. How can we resolve that? So the research world have come up with some solution for this. That one is the convergent encryption technique. How resolve the traditional encryption technique in convergent encryption technique? Yes, the key is generated from the data itself. How they are generating? By using the cryptographic collision resistant hash function. So I'm also use the cryptographic collision resistant hash function SHA-256 so that I'm generating the 256 size key so that hash value will act as the key for encrypting the data. So that is what convergent encryption technique. So what are the issues in that? So anyway, it solved the problem with the traditional encryption technique, but still the convergent encryption technique are facing some issues. What are that issue? Yeah, coming to that problem statement. So the problem is brute force attack. We all are aware of that. What is brute force attack? So the key is generated from the data itself. So we can call it as the deterministic way of key generation. So if you are in the deterministic way of key generation, if you are using the same key for a long time, so the attackers can try. Why? Because he have the ciphertext in his hand. In meantime, he can try all the possibility. He know that my key length is 256. So he can come up with the solution. He can hack my data. So brute force attack is possible. Coming to the duplicate faking attack. For example, I am the legitimate user. I am the actual data owner. First, I send the hash value for uploading data, the data to the cloud storage. So what happened? So I got that the data is not exist in the cloud storage. He asked me to upload the data. In meantime, what happened? The attacker may interfere in my communication. Instead of my data, he will upload some data to the fake data will upload it to the cloud storage server. When it comes to the cloud storage server, he may think it like it's a new data. He will upload it. He will store it in the storage space. But actually, it's not the original data. It's a fake data. Next, I upload the data. The cloud server will say, yeah, the data is exist. We will assign the reference pointer. I thought like, yeah, the data is exist. So what will happen? I'll delete the data in my local premises. When I want that particular data, I'll send the download request. What will happen? I can download the data, but it is not the actual data. I receive the fake data. So totally my data get flashed. Okay. Then over to the ownership management problem. What is the ownership management problem here? The same issue. In my organization, we have N employees. So the N employees have sharing the same key for securing the data. When any one of the employee leave my organization, he know the key. Why? Because as I said, it is the deterministic way of key generation. If I'm using the same key for a long time, the relieved user can use the key to decrypt whatever I communicated through the with the cloud server. So that's a problem. We call it as the revocation problem. So that we need to solve with my research work. Coming to the key management. Yes, key management is also a big issue. As I said, brute force attack is happened because of deterministic way of key generation. How do we resolve? How can we solve the revocation problem? Through the key management. So for this, I go with re-encryption technique. Yes, re-encryption technique we can do. For the re-encryption technique, we need key. So where the key? Who will generate? Either CSP have to generate or the data owner have to generate. If a group of users have sharing the particular data, then the end parties have to involve to generate the key. So who will take the leader role? So a lot of issues will come when the frequentially the leaving and joining the user. So that issue can be resolved with the help of CSP in my work. Now I moving to the objective. So these are my objective. So I have fulfilled this objective in my research work. First, I have secured the data in multi-user environment, and I remove the duplicate data by using the secure deduplication technique. And also I overcome the brute force attack by using the traditional approach. So I'm moving to the convergent encryption. So I'm keep on updating the key so that I can provide the dynamic ownership. And when it comes to the resource constrained devices, for example, I have a resource constrained devices, I can't keep on doing the re-encryption process, then I can outsource that to the CSP. So that problem also resolved in my research work. This is my proposed architecture. In this, 4 parties have involved. One is the data owner, who is the initial uploader. So initially I have uploading the data. The subsequent uploader, secondary uploader, no need to upload the data. He just to prove his ownership. What do you mean by ownership? There are a lot of approach to prove his ownership, either Merkle hash tree or challenge response model. Any one of the model we have to follow to prove their ownership. Then they will get the reference pointer. Here we can avoid the unauthorized person accessing our data from the cloud storage device. Okay, coming to the unauthorized user. Who is the unauthorized user? Yeah, he may be the authorized user for previously. Now, if he relieve from the organization, we can call it as the unauthorized user. He may not be able to access the data. So in my research work, I have 3 phases. One is data upload. Second one is re-key generation, re-encryption key generation. And the third one is the data download. So data upload, as I said, there are 2 uploaders here, in initial uploader and then secondary uploader. So this part is, as I said, proof of ownership play in the secondary uploader phase. Okay, the subphase, right? Then I'm moving to the re-encryption. This is the my contribution here. Why? Because here the frequency of the user joining and leaving is, if it is frequent, then I have to go for re-encrypting the data. So who can do the re-encryption? I go for CSP side re-encryption. Why? Because I have a resource constrained device. I can't keep on doing the re-encryption process. So I can give this task to CSP. Why? Because the CSP can't get any data. Here the zero knowledge proof will come in the picture. Why? Because he have the encrypted data. He is going to do the re-encryption on the encrypted data. Anyway, the CSP not able to get any information from the uploaded data. He going to do the re-encryption. Because of this re-encryption, the overall the user who relieve from my access group, he may not able to access the data. Because of the re-encryption key is needed. Through that only we can decrypt the data. The second level decryption is the already known data because of deterministic way of key generation. So this key is how they are generating. This key is generated by the CSP. So when you comes to a client side, if the client have generated the re-encryption key, then he have to communicate to all the current access group. Okay, current access list. So that's a problem with the communication overhead will happen when the re-encryption is done at the client side. So when it is happen at the server side, the server CSP no need to disclose the re-encryption key to the end users, the current users. Whenever the user want to download the particular data, if the particular owner is exist in that owner list, then only the CSP will send the re-encryption key for decrypting the re-encrypted data. So that is how I was generated. So each user, see, for example, if I upload some data to the cloud storage server, they will generate some ID for me. So that we call it as the owner ID. So whenever I want to download the particular data, I have to send the tag or a fingerprint with that owner ID. If these two are matched with the cloud storage database, then they will recognize he is a legitimate user, he is the authorized person, can access the data. So that's the thing. Okay, when you comes to that re-encryption, So I can request. So in meantime, whenever the user leaving or joining, then what the CSP have to do, they have to maintain this access list. Okay, so who all can access the particular data. So that access control list will be maintained by the CSP. Okay, whenever the new user have joined, there is no need of sending the re-encryption key to them. So when the user wants to download the particular data, then only the re-encryption key have to send. So once the re-encryption has been done at the CSP side, there is no need of a continuous or frequent re-encryption process won't happen if you are doing with the CSP. Why? Because the client side, they doesn't know what encryption key the CSP have used. Okay, when we are request for download, then only we come to know the re-encryption key. So if it is frequently download has happened, the downloaded person have leave the group, then we go for re-encryption. Again, we go for the re-encryption process. This is what done in my research work. Okay, coming to the download. So if we request for download, you can download it. So this process I have explained in this slide. So my result analysis, I have compared with 10 MB of data, 20 MB of data, 30 MB of data. It's about the block size. Okay, so I have done with this. I have measured the computation time, both the encryption as well as the decryption time. So I did the security analysis as well. Yeah.
Sorry to disturb, but I'd like to remind you of the time limit.
Yes, I have done I have completed my presentation. Okay. So this is, I done my security analysis as well. Whatever problem I raised in the problem statement, I have solved. My future direction is, so far I have used that traditional like re-encryption process. So and the next my future work, so whatever encryption technique we have used in current days, it will be compromised when quantum computing come in the picture. So that I'm working on lightweight cryptography as well as the quantum cryptography, lattice-based cryptography, to overcome that post-quantum issues. So this is what my future direction. These are my reference. These are my author. He is my student. So thank you. If you have any doubts, if you have any queries, you can ask. Thank you.
Yes, I have one question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I am only a computer user. I am not part of an information technology department such as you. So sorry if I have not understood properly. But
can you please repeat, sir?
No, sorry if I do not have your competence, but I try to address a simple question. You are saying that whatever the hash function is, you still have a possibility for an unwanted user to have access to the data that you have in the cloud.
Yeah. See, okay. The scenario is, so before uploading the data to the cloud server, I have to generate the hash code of my data. I have to upload the hash code first to the cloud storage server. The storage server have to check whether that particular hash code is exists with its database or not. If it is exists, then it may call it as that the data is exist. Then the duplicate data won't allow by the cloud storage server to upload. So that time what it will say, they have to prove, the new uploader have to prove his ownership. How they will prove? Either one case, either they can use the Merkle hash tree or they can go for challenge response model. Through that, the data owner have to prove their ownership, then they will get the reference pointer. That's the motive of using hash function in my research problem, sir.
Okay, thank you. I get the picture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hi. I just want to know, is a cloud storage the same as a server?
Yeah. So when you talk about the clouds, cloud server, they have a multiple features, right? They are providing 3 services, as I said in the beginning. So infrastructure, platform, and software. So I'm concentrating on infrastructure level. So in infrastructure level, we have 3 features. Majorly, we talk computing, storage, and then network. In that perspective, I'm choosing the storage point. So I'm directing my research in the direction of storage. So when you comes to the storage, the duplicate data exists, then the processing of data will be hectic for cloud storage server. So that I am telling I am applying the deduplication technique.
And which cloud storage server is more secure?
See, it depends on the purpose we are choosing. So we have a cloud storage. When you talk about the Google Cloud or Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, all are having their security level. They are providing security in certain level. So based on our application, we have to choose. Okay, I am working in that Amazon.
So you choose AWS, right?
Yes.
Okay. But AWS is expensive, right?
Expensive, but our intention is we want to secure the data. So if you are storing the sensitive data, we can correlate the data. I'm talking when we are relating to the healthcare data, it's very sensitive. So if you are talking about the sensitive data, we never think about the cost, we think about the security. So I have chosen that. Am I answered?
So you choose the AWS. So
Yes,
how much terabyte you took for the storage?
Yeah, I'm trying with a few size of data. I'm not work on the bulk data. Why? Because I'm using the free account. I'm not getting the full service. I have some limitations, so that I worked on up to 1 GB of data.
But like hackers are also using AWS, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then how you will able to secure?
Yeah, that's what I am telling. Yeah, the hackers are more brilliant than us. If you are using some standard techniques, then obviously the hacker can easily get control of our data. That's what I am next. My future direction is working on lattice-based cryptography.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would like to thank the WS4 2023 organizer for selecting my paper. And I want to convince my thank to my reviewers who gave a good comments about my paper. And thank you my panel members who gave good questions. I can improve my research work in that direction. And I would like to thank my institute who supported me financially. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. We'd
Thank
like
you.
to move on to the last presenter for the meeting. I'd like to invite author Brigitte to present a paper titled Using Topic Modeling and NLP Tools for Analyzing Long COVID Coverage by French Press and Twitter. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. And I need to share, okay, my presentation. Thank you. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Okay, okay. Is it okay for sharing my screen? Okay, it seems to be. Okay. My presentation today is entitled Using Topic Modeling for Analyzing Long COVID Coverage by French Press and Twitter. This research is in collaboration with Jean-Luc Minel, Emeritus Professor at the University of Paris-Nanterre. The purpose of this research is to interrogate the role played by the media and the stakeholders involved in the production and circulation of information and knowledge regarding persistent symptoms following an initial COVID infection, referred to as the long COVID category. With this in mind, we traced the emergence and the development of information and debate about these persistent symptoms in the media ecosystem over the period from spring 2020 to the end of 2022. We conducted a comparative analysis of the French regional and national press and the digital social network Twitter. First, I will briefly outline the context of the research. Second, I will specify the objectives of it. Then I will present the method and the corpora analyzed. And finally, I will present the main results. So first, I will present the context of this research. Starting in the spring of 2020, with the experience of the spread of the virus in the population, an increasing number of late onset events occurring after infection with COVID were reported by patients and physicians. It gradually became apparent that the proportion of those infected with this virus, whether hospitalized or not, were suffering from heterogeneous symptoms several weeks after, and sometimes months after infection. Many symptoms, such as severe fatigue, frequent discomfort, nausea, headaches, can lead to serious psychiatric disorders such as depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. According to the World Health Organization, in 2020, 7 million Europeans suffered from long COVID disorders and 145 million worldwide. This means more than 2 million people over 18 years old could be affected in the French population. In order to examine the media visibility of the long COVID issues, two research questions guided our comparative analysis. Research question 1, how do the topics highlighted in the press and in the tweets differ? Research question 2, what are the main categories of people and organizations mentioned in the press and on Twitter, and how do they differ? To answer these questions, two corpus were collected, a press corpus and a Twitter corpus. The press corpus is composed of articles published by 5 newspapers from the French national daily press and 39 newspapers from the regional daily press, whose annual circulation is higher than 30,000 copies. Articles were collected from the Europress platform with the query COVID long or COVID persistent or affection post-COVID. Finally, 988 articles published between June 5, 2020 and December 31, 2022 were kept. 170 articles appeared in the national press and 818 in the regional press. The first articles mentioning the French term COVID persistent appeared on June 5, 2020 in several regional newspapers. The Twitter corpus was limited to French tweets, which contained the hashtags après J20, standing for 20 days after the beginning of the infection, or COVID long, sent between April 12, 2020 and December 30, 2022. The first tweet that mentioned the long COVID and proposed the hashtag after day 2020 was sent on April 12, 2020, 2 months before the first articles in the press. The approach to process the corpora was meant to identify topics and stakeholders' standpoints using a topic modeling approach and NLP tools. Topic modeling, or LDA, is based on the construction of a probabilistic model, an unsupervised machine learning approach. The topic identification proposed by LDA is considered well suited to characterize textual data and to build semantically coherent clusters of topics in medium-length texts such as news articles, blogs, and journals. This approach is in line with unsupervised learning methods. To analyze stakeholder speech acts, it is necessary to identify them in the corpora, a goal achieved by using a classifier from Spaces software that identifies and categorizes named entities. Let's see some findings. First, let's see the difference between press flows and Twitter flows. As you can see on this slide, in the press, the top bar plot, there is a first strong increase in the number of articles in February 2020, followed by a relative stability until the end of the year 2021. A second strong progression is observed from January 2022 until March 2022. After this period, an up and down flow of articles is observed with a last peak in October 2022. Peaks are more important for the regional press category, but the general trend is similar in both categories. In 2021, peaks from February to May are related with the recognition of the long COVID by the French Health High Authority. Concerning the flow of tweets, the bottom bar plot, there is a first strong increase in the number of tweets and retweets in June 2020, followed by a slight decrease until January 2021, followed by a second strong increase in February. The highest peak is observed in November 2021. The flow during the year 2022 is rather weak, with a peak in October and November. So there are some important differences between the two flows. The flow of tweets at the beginning of the pandemic from May to June 2020 is already important, while it remains low for the press and especially for the national press, thus confirming Twitter's role as a sentinel. This slide shows 8 topics with the most significant words for each of them and the number of articles indexed by these topics. We can see that the topics that deal with the daily life of patients and symptoms are the most important here. This slide shows the annual evolution of press topics. The press devotes the greatest number of articles to the daily life topic, especially on the working issue, with a peak in March 2021. But from July 2021, the vaccination topic will give rise to a large number of articles with a peak in December 2021, which corresponds to the beginning of the vaccination campaign in France. Applying a topic modeling algorithm doesn't produce relevant results on short texts like tweets. Following Quan and Al works, we assembled tweets sent by a same account to form a text. In the second step, we kept the text with a length of more than 1,000 words. This gave us a corpus of 125 texts over the period from April 2020 to December 2022. This slide shows the list of topics with the most significant words for each of them and the number of texts indexed by these topics. The most important topics is testimonials, which gathers texts in which users relate their difficulties to live with long COVID. A major finding is the big difference between the press and Twitter. The tweets testify to the sometimes dramatic consequences of long COVID. The press articles focused on a clinical description of symptoms by doctors or scientists with rare cases of patients' testimonies. We can see here that we identified over time the persons and organizations that were relayed by the news in the regional press concerning their speeches and their positions in the debate. The press mentioned international, the World Health Organization, and national agencies in the field of public health or medical treatments, mostly IRS or INSERM, as well as a political institution, the National Assembly in France, and political people in charge of the executive power, the President of the Republic, and the Minister of Health, Olivier Véran. The other two people strongly mentioned are physicians. Furthermore, analyzing all the persons mentioned showed a strong presence of medical personalities, 56 mentions of professors of medicine, 87 mentions of physicians who were generally mentioned only once. It should be noted that the association after day 20, which represents the majority of patients, is mentioned only 5 times, 4 times in the national press and only 1 time in the regional press.
Excuse me, Parasenta.
Yes.
I'm afraid I'd like to remind you of the time limit.
Okay. Yeah, I have nearly finished. So this slide shows the most mentioned Twitter accounts in the tweet corpus over the 3 years. And we can see that the account of the Minister of Health is the most mentioned, and that all the other accounts are those of long COVID patients. Conclusion. The results of our analysis show that the press put forward the topic of daily life and then the topic of symptoms, whereas the tweets insisted much more on the patient's testimonies and their emotions. These differences are corroborated by the highlighting in the press of personalities from the political and medical world, whereas the tweets mentioned patient groups or actors from the associative world who couldn't obtain the necessary visibility to have the long COVID recognized as a disease in the press, and then have come together using digital media. Thank you for your attention.
We'll proceed with the questions.
Brigitte, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Have you had a chance to look at the effect of moderation in Twitter, or shall we call it X now, through the propagation of messages?
You mean the exchange of tweets? Do you mean?
Because I mean, in the exchange of tweets, social networks such as Twitter have moderators. Has there been any data out of how moderation influences the Twitter messages during the COVID period?
In fact, when you have a subject like COVID, you mostly think of infodemic and misinformation, disinformation, and the collaboration with platforms. You're right to moderate these information phenomena. What we wanted to do here is really to show that there are other types of accounts, and there are other types of information that circulate and are shared on Twitter. And that Twitter accounts, it is true, is a media that carries disinformation, misinformation, but also Twitter accounts can carry share and the recognition of political standpoints by forgotten patients. So for me, I understand your question, but here the problem was not to moderate this specific account because it is not correlated with disinformation. It is correlated, on the contrary, to gather attention and to show scientific results and to ask for help to physicians and to the health ministry in France. And this is not only a national initiative. It's a European initiative and it's an international initiative here.
Okay, thank you.
Ruchi, would you like to ask any question?
It was very impressive.
I'm sorry. I don't hear you.
Sorry. I mean, I just want to know which NLP tools you are using for the text recognition.
Jean-Luc,
Which
my
algorithms? Algorithm.
Yeah,
Yes,
Jean-Luc?
yes, I understand the question. We use a software to limitize the text. So it's a free software to make a limmatization of the text. Okay, is that what it was your question? And after for the algorithm to build to identify the topics, it's a package model of air language, which is able to compute the topic in the corpora. So it's a probabilistic model.
Okay, thank you.
Fine.
Since we are over with the papers, I guess this concludes our meeting. I sincerely thank our authors for the excellent presentation contribution in this session and all our participants for being a part of this international conference. I hope this session was informative enough. We, on behalf of the whole team, thank you for the support during the 7th version and all of the previous 6 versions of the conference. We will be happy to have you in the 8th version in 2024. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificates through email within 2 working days. Furthermore, all the papers have already been forwarded to the Springer. The publication will be live within 6 months. Kindly cooperate with the team of World S4 2023. I also thank our session chair, Professor Ruchi Doshi, for chairing this session. A token of appreciation to the chair on behalf of Team World S4 2023 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation and partners. Thank you for your valuable presence, ma'am. And I'd also like to thank our next session chair, Professor Meenakshi Sumatarya, for being here with us. Dear all, I kindly request all of you to turn on your camera for a quick snapshot of the virtual conference. Can we all please turn on the cameras? Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.